There are a lot of obvious and completely legitimate reasons to feel stressed and anxious right now. Worries about your own health and the health of your loved ones. Worries about your business, your career, your colleagues, your employees, your industry, and the economy at large. But once we've accounted for these more obvious sources of stress, many of us are realizing that we're feeling way more stress than can be explained by simply adding together these identifiable stressors. And we're left to wonder, where the heck is all this extra anxiety coming from? For many of us, it is probably two highly related sources. Number one, mirror neurons. And number two, what I've come to refer to as death by 1,000 cuts. Now, with regard to the first of these two sources of stress, mirror neurons, they are, under normal circumstances, one of humankind's most beautiful and useful evolutions. In a nutshell, mirror neurons are what allow us to experience the emotions of another person as if they were our own. So we see our children overjoyed at winning their first baseball game, and we feel their joy ourselves. Or we see a couple sharing a moment of love and tenderness, and we feel all warm and fuzzy too. Mirror neurons are what allow us to feel empathy for the emotions and experiences of others. And this empathy is the bedrock of healthy, loving relationships and also healthy, functioning societies. Generally speaking, mirror neurons are the beautiful, exquisite ties that bind us together as human beings. But right now, in the midst of a global pandemic, mirror neurons are also the things that are causing us tremendous additional suffering. Because mirror neurons don't just allow us to experience the positive emotions of others, they allow us to share the negative emotions too. So we're not just feeling our own suffering, we're feeling the suffering of the other 8 billion people on this planet. And that is a lot of extra suffering for all of us to be carrying right now. Which brings us to the related issue of death by 1,000 cuts. For many, many of us, there are really big problems that we are facing right now. A loved one is sick. We've lost our job. Our savings are almost completely gone. We're going to work in essential jobs and potentially putting ourselves and our families at risk every day. And all of these big things are, understandably, very stressful. But what has snuck up on many of us over the past couple of weeks is the additive effect of the hundreds, if not thousands, of small daily reminders of how horribly, utterly broken the entire world is right now. Each little incident may not seem like it has much of an impact on our mental and emotional health, but over time, they add up. So the sign outside a restaurant proclaiming, "We're open," with equal parts defiance and desperation. The line of people wearing masks and silently, dutifully standing 6 feet apart outside the grocery store, waiting for their turn to go inside. The still largely empty shelves where toilet paper and paper towels should be. The empty parking lot outside the doggy daycare center. The mother and child asking for money on a street corner where you've never seen anyone doing that before in all your years of living here. And what's particularly insidious is that even beautiful, hopeful things still add to the tally of cuts. Children's chalk drawings on the sidewalk with messages of love and inspiration. All the extra families walking together on the trails near your house. The opportunity to eat dinner with your college-age children every night. Being able to work in pajamas every day if you want to. Not having to commute an hour back and forth to the office every day. Giving yourself license to have ice cream for dessert after dinner every night. As wonderful as these things are in one sense, they still serve as reminders that the world is not normal. And so they are double-edged swords. One side may fill us with love, hope, and gratitude, but the other side still adds to the tally in the death by 1,000 cuts math. And when we start to pay attention to the sheer volume of reminders, both good and bad, of how very shattered the world is right now, we begin to get an understanding of why so many of us have felt a volume of stress and anxiety that we could not explain simply by accounting for our own immediate suffering and that of our loved ones and our businesses. Simply put, each of us is carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders right now. There is nowhere we can turn where there aren't reminders of the collective stress, anxiety, and suffering of our fellow humans right now. Each reminder may be small, but they add up quickly when we're faced with hundreds of them every day after day, week after week, month after month. It is death by 1,000 cuts. So what are we to do about this? What can we do about this? Personally, I have found that simply understanding and naming the source of this extra stress and anxiety has been extremely helpful. Rather than criticize myself for feeling worse than I quote unquote should feel, I can accept that part of being human is feeling the suffering of others, and there's just a lot of extra suffering to be feeling right now. So know that you are not crazy. You're not being irrational. You're not being melodramatic if you feel that you're more stressed or anxious than just your own specific situation would suggest. You're just a human with the capacity for empathy, which is wonderful, and also a really tough thing to be right now. Second, have a conversation about these death by 1,000 cuts reminders with someone close to you. Sit down, virtually if you need to, and compare notes at the end of a day. Now, maybe not every day, but pick one day and do this, listing out all of the reminders you encountered that day of how not normal the world is now, both the bad reminders and the good reminders. It's incredibly cathartic to take things that have been operating in the shadows all this time and drag them into the light. And to realize that you are not the only one feeling this way, we are all feeling this way. In a world where so few things are normal right now, it is totally normal to feel stressed and anxious by this lack of normalcy. And third, identify a few things you can do to try to return some kind of normalcy to your life, to your work, and to your days in general. So if you're missing the way certain things were before the pandemic hit, see if you can find creative ways to reinstate them now. Also think about ways to introduce reasonable amounts of predictability and routines and habit patterns into your life so that it feels like you have some kind of stability you can cling to even when everything else around you is shifting. And finally, cut yourself some slack. Recognize that you feel how you feel and try not to judge yourself for it. You are carrying more than you know. We all are. So if that means ice cream for dessert again tonight, well, so be it. For more information, as well as additional videos and resources, please visit my website.